Hi everyone, my name's Trevor Osborn. I'm a Utah attorney working at Red Law, and a question that I frequently receive from my clients is, how is child support calculated? This is a question that comes from both parents because the parent that is potentially going to have to pay child support is concerned that if the child support amount is so high, they won't be able to meet their obligations. They may lose their home, they may lose their car, or they may fall further into debt. And the party that's potentially going to be receiving child support is concerned that if the child support amount they're going to be receiving isn't enough, they won't have enough money to meet their obligations. So there are a few factors that we consider when calculating child support. Now, the first factor that we consider when we calculate child support is the party's income. We don't just consider the income of the party that's going to be paying child support, but we also consider the income of the party that's going to be receiving child support. In some cases, what happens is one of the parties was employed previously, but they're not now. Maybe they were laid off, or they were fired, or they voluntarily resigned from their job. What the court can do is take the salary that that party was earning previously and impute income. What that means is the court will say, okay, 6 months ago when you were working, you were making $20 per hour working 40 hours a week. So when we calculate child support, we're going to assume that you have the ability to make $20 an hour at 40 hours a week. In some cases, the income of one of the parties fluctuates more than that. Maybe they were in a position where their salary was based on commissions, or they were self-employed. In instances like that, what the court can do is take an average over a period of time. The court may say, you are making on average $100,000 per year, so when we calculate child support, we're going to assume you have the ability to make $100,000 per year, and then the court will use that amount when calculating child support. The court generally will not consider overtime pay or pay coming from other part-time jobs in the calculation of child support. It can do that in some limited circumstances, but generally the court will not do that. The second factor that we use when we calculate child support is the number of children that the parties have together. Of course, if the parties have one child, the child support obligation is going to be a lot less than if the parties have 4 or 5 children together. Now, the third factor that we consider when we're calculating child support is the type of physical custody awarded. Joint physical custody to both of the parties, primary physical custody to one of the parties, or split custody. Now, if joint physical custody is awarded to both of the parties, then child support is calculated by the number of overnights that the children spend at each of the parents' home. Remember that just because the parties are awarded joint physical custody doesn't mean that the children are spending half the time at mom's and half the time at dad's. It could mean that the children are spending 111 nights at mom's and they're spending the other 254 nights at dad's. So the amount of child support can fluctuate quite a bit depending on those overnights. If one party is awarded primary physical custody, then we stop talking about overnights and we just say, okay, one party is awarded primary physical custody, so we're not going to worry about how many overnights the children are spending at mom's or dad's. We're just going to calculate child support based on the fact that primary physical custody is awarded. To give you an idea of what this might look like, if mom and dad each make $60,000 per year, and they have 3 children, and mom and dad are awarded joint physical custody of their children, and the children spend the night half of the time at mom's and they spend the night half of the time at dad's, then there's almost no child support obligation for either party. But if mom is awarded primary physical custody of those 3 children, then dad now pays about $950 per month in child support. There are a few other factors that we consider when we're calculating child support. One of those factors is whether either of the parents have a previous child support or alimony obligation in a different case. Another factor that we consider is what we call obligation to children in the present home. What that essentially means is if one of the parents has now been remarried and there are other children of that marriage living in their home, then they owe an obligation to those other children that are now living in their home. When that's the case, we consider that obligation when we calculate child support, which means we also consider the income of that second spouse. Now, the easiest way to calculate the amount of child support that you're going to have to pay or that you're going to be receiving is to go onto the Office of Recovery Services website and use the calculator they provide. I'll link to it in the description below, as well as to some other statutes in the Utah Code. But go onto that website, play with the numbers, and see what you can come up with. It's very easy to use. If you have any other questions about child support or other family law related issues, please visit our website at www.redlawutah.com. There's lots of free information there, or give us a call. We're happy to answer questions.